To whom thus Adam, cleared of doubt, replied, How fully hast thou satisfied me, pure intelligence of heaven, angel serene, and freed from intricacies, taught to live the easiest way, nor with perplexing thoughts to interrupt the sweet of life, from which God hath bid dwell far off all anxious cares, and not molest us, unless we ourselves seek them with wandering thoughts and notions vain. But apt the mind or fancy is to rove unchecked, and of her roving is no end till warned, or by experience taught, she learn. That not to know at large of things remote from use, obscure and subtle, but to know that which before us lies in daily life is the prime wisdom. What is more is fume, or emptiness, or fond impertinence, and renders us in things that most concern unpractised, unprepared, and still to seek. Therefore from this high pitch let us descend a lower flight, and speak of things at hand, useful, whence haply mention may arise of something not unseasonable to ask by sufferance, and thy wonted favour deigned. Thee I have heard relating what was done ere my remembrance. Now hear me relate my story, which perhaps thou hast not heard. And day is yet not spent, till then thou seest how subtly to detain thee I devise, inviting thee to hear while I relate fond, were it not in hope of thy reply, for while I sit with thee I seem in heaven. And sweeter thy discourse is to my ear than fruits of palm tree pleasantest to thirst and hunger both, from labour. At the hour of sweet repast they satiate, and soon fill, though pleasant. But thy words with grace divine imbued bring to their sweetness no satiety. To whom thus Raphael answered heavenly meek, Nor are thy lips ungraceful, sire of men, nor tongue ineloquent. For God on thee abundantly his gifts have also poured, inward and outward both, his image fair. Speaking or mute, all comeliness and grace attends thee, and each word, each motion forms. Nor less think we in heaven of thee on earth than of our fellow servant, and inquire gladly into the ways of God with man. For God we see hath honoured thee, and set on man his equal love. Say therefore on, for I that day was absent, and, as befell, bound on a voyage uncouth and obscure, far on excursion toward the gates of hell, squared in full legion, such command we had, to see that none thence issued forth a spy or enemy while God was in his work, lest he, incensed at such interruption bold, destruction with creation might have mixed. Not that they durst without his leave attempt, but us he sends upon his high behests for state, as sovereign king, and to inure our prompt obedience. Fast we found, fast shut the dismal gates, and barricaded strong. But long ere our approaching heard within noise, other than the sound of dance or song, torment, and loud lament, and furious rage. Glad we returned up to the coasts of light, ere Sabbath evening. So we had in charge. But thy relation now, for I attend, pleased with thy words, no less than thou with mine. So spake the godlike power, and thus our sire, for man, to tell how human life began is hard. For who himself beginning knew? Desire with thee still longer to converse induced me. As new waked from soundest sleep, soft on the flowery herb I found me laid in balmy sweat, which with his beams the sun soon dried, and on the reeking moisture fed. Straight toward heaven my wandering eyes I turned, and gazed awhile the ample sky, till raised by quick instinctive motion up I sprung, and as thitherward endeavouring, and upright, stood on my feet. About me round I saw hill, dale, and shady woods, and sunny plains, and liquid laps of murmuring streams. By these creatures that lived and moved and walked or flew, birds on the branches warbling, all things smiled with fragrance, and with joy my heart o'erflowed. Myself I then perused, and limb by limb surveyed, and sometimes went, and sometimes ran with supple joints, as lively vigour led. But who I was, or where, or from what cause, knew not. To speak I tried, and forthwith spake. My tongue obeyed, and readily could name whate'er I saw. Thou sun, said I, fair light, and thou enlightened earth so fresh and gay, Ye hills and dales, ye rivers, woods and plains, and ye that live and move, fair creatures, tell if ye saw, how came I thus? How here? Not of myself, by some great Maker then, in goodness and in power preeminent. Tell me, how may I know him? How adore, from whom I have that thus I move and live, and feel that I am happier than I know? While thus I called and strayed, I knew not whither, from where I first drew air and first beheld this happy light, when answer none returned. On a green shady bank profuse of flowers, pensive, I sat me down. There gentle sleep first found me, and with soft oppression seized my drowsed sense. Untroubled, though I thought I then was passing to my former state, insensible, and forthwith to dissolve. When suddenly stood at my head a dream, whose inward apparition gently moved my fancy to believe I yet had being, and lived. One came, methought, of shape divine, and said, Thy mansion wants thee, Adam, rise. First man, of men innumerable ordained, first father, called by thee I come thy guide, to the garden of bliss thy seat prepared. So saying, by the hand he took me raised, and over fields and waters, as in air, smooth sliding without step, last led me up a woody mountain, whose high top was plain, a circuit wide enclosed with goodliest trees, planted with walks and bowers, that what I saw of earth before scarce pleasant seemed, each tree loaden with fairest fruit, that hung to the eye tempting, stirred in me sudden appetite to pluck and eat, whereat I waked, and found before mine eyes all real, as the dream had lively shadowed. Here had new begun my wandering, had not he who was my guide, up hither from among the trees appeared, presence divine. Rejoicing but with awe, in adoration at his feet I fell submiss. He reared me, and whom thou soughtst I am, said mildly, author of all this thou seest, above or round, about thee or beneath. This paradise I give thee, count it thine, to till and keep, and of the fruit to eat, of every tree that in the garden grows, eat freely, with glad heart, fear here no dearth, but of the tree whose operation brings knowledge of good and ill, which I have set the pledge of thy obedience and thy faith amid the garden by the tree of life. Remember what I warn thee, shun to taste, and shun the bitter consequence. For know, the day thou eat'st thereof, my sole command transgressed, inevitably thou shalt die. From that day mortal, and this happy state shalt loose, expelled from hence into a world of woe and sorrow. Sternly he pronounced the rigid interdiction, which resounds yet dreadful in mine ear, though in my choice not to incur, but soon his clear aspect returned, and gracious purpose thus renewed, not only these fair bounds, but all the earth to thee and to thy race I give, as lords possess it, and all things that therein live, or live in sea or air, beast, fish, and fowl, in sign whereof each bird and beast behold after their kinds, I bring them to receive from thee their names, and pay thee fealty with low subjection. Understand the same of fish within their watery residence, not hither summoned, since they cannot change their element to draw the thinner air. As thus he spake, each bird and beast behold, approaching two and two, these cowering low with blandishment. Each bird stooped on his wing. I named them as they passed, and understood their nature. With such knowledge God endued my sudden apprehension. But in these I found not what me thought I wanted still.